So today I want to talk about overflowing gutters. This is especially a crucial thing because we just had a big freeze in Georgia, and there's a slight chance that if you had buildup and it froze, it can also lead to overpouring. So this is a big topic. It's a very common issue I see on a lot of homes. In today's video, I'm going to cover a few different areas that relate to why your gutters may be overflowing. First big one is going to be clogged gutters. So there's a lot of things that can lead to gutters clogging. Obviously, leaf debris is going to be the biggest thing. But let's say you have an awning where wires are running through the gutters. You have daytime or nighttime lighting where wires are running through the gutters, satellite dishes. There's a lot of other things that people are going to want to try to hide for the aesthetic purposes that are going to run through your gutters, ultimately making them a little bit easier to clog because there's more things for those leaves to get caught up on. Number two is going to be the wrong gutter guard type. So I always preface this by doing 3 different kinds of gutter guards. They're each going to be dependent on what kind of debris you have falling year round around your home. That's ultimately going to decide what is the best fit for you. Shingles hanging over too far is also a really big problem, especially if you couple that with having a smaller gutter mouth, like say a 4 to 5 inch gutter instead of a 6-inch gutter. This is usually going to be a big problem because drip edge hasn't been coded for a long period of time in Georgia. Lastly is just going to be not ample downspouts. There are downspouts that are very, very small. In fact, my home, I had just replaced them recently because they had the very small profile of downspouts instead of the typical 3x4-inch residential downspouts that are going to give you a lot more water flow and be a little bit harder to clog due to it just having a wider mouth at the top. Lastly is going to be clogged downspouts. While this video is to cover clogged gutters, clogged downspouts are also a very big issue. I've touched on this a couple times, but there's a couple factors as to why this may be happening. So let's get right into it. Clogged gutters. So if you have different varying degrees of things that are on your home, like I said, a satellite dish, an awning, this means you're going to have typically more maintenance, and this can also fear with the gutter guard system. So if this is something you opt to do on your home, make sure to talk to the contractors how they're going to install it and how they're going to help prevent that maintenance, or have them have a maintenance schedule ready for you. That way you know how often they truly have to be cleaned, because I've seen it before where the awning wires are super thick. They're laced into the brackets that hold the gutter to the fascia, and it's so much interference that it's super easy for those gutters to get clogged. Reason being that they have to now be cleaned probably closer to 7 to 8 times a year instead of just, after the spring growth gets in there, and then also a couple times during the fall, which is very typical in Georgia. Second thing I wanted to touch on was the gutter guards. So there's 3 main kinds that are going to cover most of your gutter guard installations. There's your mesh, which is going to be just like it sounds. It's a wire screen mesh. This is going to be if you have large leaf debris that comes down, say big oaks, maple trees, typically your hardwoods. That is going to be a great solution for you. It's typically cheaper, and one thing that it allows is for a lot more water flow. So if you have a steeper slope roof, this is also going to be a really great fit for you. You're not going to have a lot of overpour issues. With that being said, if you do have pine needles, and pine trees are a big thing you have around your home, then it's going to be more of an issue. It's very easy for the pine needles to build up and in fact get through that wire mesh, and then you're still going to lead to clogged gutters. So making sure not only yourself but the contractors taking a good look around the home to make sure what's a good fit for you. Next is going to be an even flow style. So this is going to be a recessed gutter type, meaning you can't see it from the ground unless you have a 1-story home or your home sits down in the driveway. This is going to be a flat surface. Sometimes it's ribbed, but it's typically going to be perforated, meaning there's holes punched into it to allow the water to flow in. You have to be careful with this type. This is kind of an in-between your premium and your mesh. This is going to cover a better variety of leaf material. However, a transition, if you have like a 10 or a 12 pitch roof, meaning it's pretty steep if you look at it, you can definitely run into some issues. So if you have a steep transition, as you can imagine, when it's raining really hard and the water's gushing down in a 10-12 or a 12-12 and it comes in contact with a flat surface, a lot of that stuff's gonna pour over. And in fact, I've seen it several times before I really knew what I was doing in this industry, where the oils from a new roof that got replaced, coupled with the overpouring, it actually starts to stain the front of the gutters, and I end up cleaning a good bit of gutters not knowing that this wasn't the perfect choice for this home. So it is a good in-between. One of the big things I do like about this gutter system is it does actually strengthen the gutter system when it's installed properly, because the way most gutter guards are installed, they are laid on top of the gutter and then they're screwed into what we call the lip. So you have your fascia, you have the gutter, and then you have the little lip. Most of them are screwed into that, but on this system you install on the front lip, and then you can also install on the back side to where it actually strengthens the gutter system, which is fantastic. So if your gutters are in a more prone area where they're starting to hang, your fascia is a little bit older, this could also be a really great solution for you. Third kind is going to be more along the leaf filter, is going to be what most people know. We just call it our premium gutter guards. A lot of people also refer to this as a gutter helmet. So this is an all-encasing system, 100% clog free. This is the best option if you have a multitude of variety of trees around your home that are just falling pretty much year round. And this is going to provide you with the most amount of protection. These are typically going to be powder coated, and it comes in a variety of colors, which is why a lot of homeowners opt to do this as well, is because you can typically make it match a shingle color and it kind of blends seamlessly and looks pretty nice. This is going to be definitely your most expensive option, but if it's an issue where you just don't want to clean your gutters year round, they're hard to reach, even it's going to be more costly to do that, in the long run, this can really save you a good bit of money. Next is going to be the shingles hanging over too far. What do I mean by this exactly? So in Georgia specifically, and there's other states that may vary a little bit where drip edge has been coded for a long time. Drip edge is just an L piece of metal that overlaps your fascia boards and goes up on your roofing deck. So because this wasn't coded in Georgia until about 12 years ago, what a lot of contractors would do to prevent wind-driven rain from getting underneath the shingles and getting in between the natural gap where your roof decking stops and your fascia board begins is they would overhang the shingles. Installation instructions for shingles recommend no more than 1.25 inch overhang. Well, when you have 3 inches of overhang to try and compensate for that wind-driven rain, as you can guess, on steeper roofs, on bad transitions, that water's just going to pour right over the gutters. Because if you have a large overhang and a smaller gutter, your gutter only has about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches to catch all that water. And on these heavy downpours we have in Georgia, it could be a big problem. And it's one of the most common things I see, especially if they're not compensating for this on a new roof, or let's say if they do have smaller gutters. So it's something where if you do have this issue, it's definitely worth putting a ladder up on your eave and checking it out and seeing if it's something you can actually fix yourself with the razor knife. Please snap a chalk line. Be careful. Working on ladder is very difficult, but a lot of times if it's a small run, it is something you can absolutely fix yourself. Not having an ample downspout is super important, because if you don't have enough water flow for that rain to actually exit that gutter, then as you can imagine, you're gonna have a lot of backflow. These small residential downspouts are pretty uncommon nowadays. I don't see them very often. It's very rare I even see new construction where they skimp out on the bigger downspouts. Just making sure you do have a 3x4 downspout is going to be an exponential difference when you're talking about how much water flow that can actually leave that gutter. And as you can imagine, if a hole is about half the size as what it should be on a larger downspout, you're going to have a lot more clogged debris. It's just going to be a lot easier to clog. It's not going to take quite as much leaves and debris. And then once it's clogged, that's where you get the backflow in the gutters, and then it starts pouring over in both directions, making it kind of confusing to figure out why that is happening. Also, if you do have a 2-story home, without having a drone or actually calling somebody out, it can also be kind of hard to diagnose. Good thing is most roofing and gutter contractors are actually going to do an inspection for free. A lot of time, even if it's a cleaning, they usually roll it into the price for coming out and doing the inspection in and of itself. Clogged downspouts can happen for a couple reasons. This can also be confused for why your gutter is overflowing. Usually the sign you have a clogged downspout is the water is actually going to backflow out the top. I'll put up a picture so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Clogged downspouts can happen for a couple reasons. Very, very obvious one is going to be the leaf debris at the very top of the downspout is clogged, causing the gutter to overflow and everything, and usually you can diagnose that pretty quickly. One common thing I see that does get overlooked is when a lot of people have drainage pipes. So at the bottom of a downspout, instead of having it just pour onto the ground, they have it go into a drainage pipe that's fed somewhere else that's a lower elevation down the property. If those get clogged, it can be a big problem. It can be very costly to have these cleaned, and a lot of the times they do have to ultimately get replaced. But if this is truly clogged, don't let somebody talk you into just replacing your gutter system. It has to be fixed. And the reason I say these systems last a long time is they usually do as far as the drainage systems, but if you have trees, roots, those are gonna grow, those are gonna collapse that system. It's gonna bundle in all the debris over time, especially if you don't have gutter guards. And then once that happens, it can actually be a bigger problem to where now it's clogged, you have to get that replaced, and that's what will ultimately fix the problem of your downspouts backflowing. So if you have overflowing gutters, these are some of the top symptoms that I see when I go to look at properties that have this issue. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope this helps.